Dr. Greta has a knack for storytelling, and you will certainly have a belly laugh like I did when she shares her story of her first business in elementary school. Dr. Greta Anderson also has a knack for filling gaps. She is one of the few African American women to earn a Class A status as a golf teaching professional. She is the founder of two businesses, one of which is Digital Sage. She's also the owner of Dr. Greta Golf, a golf business that she started 10 years ago. She uses her expertise as a player, her status as a global instructor, and certification as a Class A instructor to teach golf at an exemplary level. She is a member of the Ladies Professional Golf Association, what we know as the LPGA, and the host of the Smart Golfer podcast. She is a brand ambassador for Titleist. We all know the Titleist golf balls, and for FootJoy. Dr. Greta is clearly also an ambassador for the game of golf, and when you listen to this episode, she tells us why. Before starting her businesses, she was a team leader and research director at Gallup, where she honed her expertise in serving companies in the luxury space, specifically luxury travel and hospitality. She's a proud Detroiter, graduate of University of Michigan, and social scientist by training. Check out this episode of the Age Has No Limit podcast to hear her tips on how to become a brand ambassador, her hilarious story about her first business in elementary school, what it takes to become a Class A instructor, and learn from her example that, as she says, most great things come out of filling a gap. Stay tuned to learn more about Dr. Greta Anderson, or of course, Dr. Greta Golf, on the Age Has No Limit podcast, and don't forget to subscribe or download this episode. It's the Age Has No Limit podcast. We're here to show and prove that your age shouldn't prevent you from designing and living the life you want. I'm your host, Patrice Davis. Let's get started. Thank you for joining me for the Age Has No Limit podcast. I am joined by Dr. Greta Anderson, who is going to tell us more about who she is, a little bit about her career, about her life. And, one of the things we always want to know is her definition of a no limit life. So, Dr. Anderson, we're going to start by first finding out a little bit about the name of your brand. I think I mentioned to you that I really like, for some reason, it just rolls off the tongue. It is Dr. Greta Golf. I think it's brilliant, but I'd like to learn how you decided to merge the two. Just want to get some insight into the name of your business.
Sure. Well, of course, my name is Greta Anderson. That is me, and I am Dr. Greta Anderson. And so I've been, I earned my PhD decades ago. It's still staggering when I say that to myself. I'm going like, has it been that long? And so one of the things that I was a young woman, I was 28 when I completed my PhD I'm a proud Wolverine, go blue. We just won the national championship, by the way. But so I was never really comfortable, particularly at a young age, being called Dr. Anderson. It's so formal, so heavy and that type of thing. So I would tell people, just call me Dr. Greta. And so it just kind of stuck. And so here we are. And so when I began the golf business, it's my style of teaching. It's teaching golf at an exemplary level, but it's with my style and my flavor. And so I thought, hey, let's keep it simple and fun, but accurate. And here we are, Dr. Greta Golf.
Yes. Now, since we've already gotten some background on the name of your business, share with us exactly what is your business, at least one of the businesses that we're aware of, but
Sure.
I'd love to learn a bit more.
Sure. So Dr. Greta Golf is a golf educational practice, as I like to term it. I'm far more than just an instructor, right? So I teach at various levels. So I teach at a local level. I teach individuals, some who may be picking up the club for the first time, others who may be playing at a high level of competition, collegiately playing, mid-ams, as we call it, you name it. I teach everyone, but I really focus on my great passion and love is really growing the game. And of course, that means bringing more people into golf. So I spend a lot of my time doing that at the local level, but I'm also what's called a global educator. And so I'm a proud member of the Ladies Professional Golf Association. I'm a professional. And in that, most people, I shouldn't say most people know, but many people know that the process of becoming a certified instructor is quite involved. It's a multi-year process. It's kind of like going to college in many ways. And so there are just a handful of professionals that serve as essentially the professors in that college. And I'm one of those professors, if you will.
Mm,
So
mm,
I teach, like I said, I teach people from a business standpoint. I will be B2C, but I'm
mhm,
also a B2B in the
mm.
world of golf instruction.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. So thank you so much for really explaining that to us. I hadn't realized that when one becomes a golf instructor, you have the opportunity to both serve individuals, but as you said, also serve businesses in that way that you described. So how long have you been in business?
In this business I've been in, I guess we're almost knocking on the door of 10 years. Hard to
Mm,
believe, but yeah.
wow, 10 years. Okay, good, good, good. So we're starting to learn about Dr. Greta, the golf instructor, a premier golf instructor, by the way. So tell us a little bit about where you were from. Would love to learn a little bit about that.
So I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, in
Hmm.
Detroit, Michigan,
Hmm.
Northwest Detroit. I'm a proud child of Detroit. Detroit public school system,
Hmm.
and I matriculated, and then so I ultimately earned my graduate education there at the University of Michigan. And then from there, I came on down to Atlanta to continue my education, and I ended up at Clark Atlanta University, which
Hmm.
is how I originally came south as a young adult. And an amazing experience here. That was quite some time ago, but in Atlanta was, in the growth area, in the early growth from what it is today. It was,
Hmm.
the early 90s and that type of thing. So I learned a lot, had some great lessons there, but I needed to continue my education. I've decided I wanted to become a researcher. I'm a social scientist by training. That's where the doctor comes from. And
Hmm.
so with that decision, I decided to return to the University of Michigan, spend a few more years there.
Hmm.
Then I came on back to Atlanta. And so this is where I really kind of spent my adult life. I've built my career and my businesses all here. So from that time, by the time I finished school, I finished, working on my dissertation, all that good stuff while I was in Atlanta, but I was a researcher. I worked for the Gallup organization for quite some time. But during that time, being on the supplier side, if you will, in the consulting and research world,
Hmm.
I developed an area of expertise in several verticals, but I really focused on serving in the luxury space of travel and hospitality, whether
Hmm.
that was airlines or
Hmm.
hotels and resorts, that type of thing. And so as I fast forward and came into um, entrepreneurialism, because I was always an entrepreneur from the time I was a little girl, and that's a whole other kind of
Hmm.
story and discussion. But
Hmm.
I knew that I wanted to create some unique things.
Hmm.
But when I came on out, I realized, oh, I have these great skills as a researcher and an understander, if that's a word, understanding of human behavior, and I'm very curious about that. But those skills marry very nicely with serving people very well. And
Hmm.
so when I came into golf, I knew that um, that's a differentiator because a lot of people don't look at it that way. But one of my great goals was to create, no matter where I was teaching, because I've taught at country clubs all the way to, municipal golf ranges, right?
Hmm.
And my job is to create a great experience for you, whether
Hmm.
from the educational standpoint, but just over the overall experience. And so when I decided to build my own business, I knew that I wanted to marry all of those things in to create a unique mix. And
Hmm.
so here we are.
Mm. That's one of the things I think I enjoy about being an entrepreneur is being able to take different experiences, different things that people wouldn't think be aligned, right? And use your experience to merge the two. I really want to pick back up on you saying that you've always been an entrepreneur since you were a
Sure.
little girl. I would
Sure.
love to learn about that. And
Yeah.
then I'd like to pick back up on exactly what you did at the Gallup. Is it a Gallup? I don't remember the name of, but I'm familiar with
The
Gallup. We
Gallup
all are familiar.
organization. Yes. A lot of
Yes,
people
the
are
Gallup.
familiar with the poll,
Yeah.
right? They've heard of the Gallup poll. Yes. Same company.
Exactly. And I
Yes.
definitely also want to touch on the luxury travel, the research you did in the luxury travel
Sure.
space. So you just brought up three things that
Okay.
piqued my interest, and I'm sure
Uh-huh.
it's piqued the audience's interest as
Okay.
well. So let's start with your entrepreneurial spirit as a little girl.
Sure. I've always felt like um, I'm good at filling the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been one whose entrepreneurial intentions focus around creating the latest or greatest. I've
Mm-hmm.
just always had a knack for filling the small gaps,
Hmm.
right? Because most great things come out of a small gap, right? Necessity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we see it before others.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the most basic level, I remember um, this was, I guess, probably one of my most proud little companies, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
or revenue lines, I'll call it that. It wasn't quite a company, but
Yeah.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to think, I might have been 8 or 9, I was a little girl,
Mm-hmm.
but I could see in school. So, elementary school, some of us would take our lunch, right? Some people would, buy lunch or have lunch at school. But all of us are this way, but particularly kids. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what's in your lunch, something in somebody else's lunch looks better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my mom always packed our lunches, and of course we had a very nice little balanced lunch. It would be like a sandwich and fruit and maybe like a little treat, a couple of little Oreos or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always something better. Like I've got Oreos, but she's got chocolate chip cookies. I've got chocolate chip cookies, but she's got a little snack pack of Doritos, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so everybody's always trading. I realized, but you can't see what they have on the down of the end of the lunch table, and it was always confusion. And people look, and I realized, like, for a small fee, I could set up a brokerage.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Uh-huh.
So for 25 cents a week,
Really? Oh my God.
you could, remember these are 70s and early 80s prices, right?
Yes, I
You
know.
could you could put in,
Yeah.
and then you could have your run at the thing. So, I mean, again, we can index the dollar, but I mean, I was making pretty good coin.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it was a
Mm-hmm.
great service.
Yes, yes. Wow. Mm-hmm.
And I realized, like, oh, it doesn't have to be something big and fancy.
Mm-hmm.
It served a need.
Mm.
And so I've always been that way. So, like you said, that's probably out of all the businesses and things that I've done from from an entrepreneurial standpoint, that one probably maybe because it's the first one, but it was really near and dear to my heart. But it also made people happy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it
Mm-hmm.
was great. I got
Yeah.
shut down for some other
I
reasons,
know.
but
I'm
ultimately,
sure. I know. I'm not. That's why I didn't ask.
yeah.
Okay.
But
Mm-hmm.
nonetheless,
Uh-huh.
it was good, and it was fun, and it was
Mm-hmm.
manageable, and all those types of things,
Mm.
and it fit me, right? I
Yeah.
wasn't trying to do it for the whole school. If you
Mm-hmm.
happen to be in my lunch period, you were lucky.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I gotta ask how that worked though. You gotta tell me how that worked. I can't just walk away from that one. I'm not
Yeah,
moving on to a question. I'd love to learn more.
yeah. So it was very something. It was just very low tech, right? This is
Yeah.
before, a
Mm-hmm.
quarter, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you had to help me out, I knew, again, it's an elementary school. It's not like it's a high school of,
Mm-hmm.
1,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Who was paying, and who was involved. I had my little sheet with everybody's name, and check it off, very simple, and a
Mm-hmm.
milk crate.
Mm-hmm.
And you put your stuff in, and then the same way you put it in, you could come around and look. And people weren't like, I want that. It was very, everybody got along, also because we knew we couldn't make too much of a ruckus. I mean, this was kind of a little bit, I won't say
Under the
contraband,
table.
but little
Uh,
table, right.
Literally, right?
My greatest challenge really is that
Mm-hmm.
people pay again. Remember, we're
Mm-hmm.
little,
Yeah.
and people are paying in quarters. Like, the
Mm-hmm.
quarters, I didn't have enough pockets.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I mean, think
Wow.
about it, right? It's not like today where the kids could cash app you a buck or something like that. I
Yeah.
mean, this is
Yeah.
a real quarter. And, if
Mm-hmm.
you're collecting 30 quarters,
Mm-hmm.
so I had to manage that. I learned I just had a little pen. Remember the pencil?
Yes.
Had an extra pencil,
Mm-hmm.
and
Wow.
it was very basic, but it was a great service. Took off better than I thought it would. And
Mm-hmm.
again, ultimately, got a little too ruckus, I won't say loud, but
Mm-hmm.
they just didn't want that happening. And, it was getting popular because then people at the other tables were, it got it, a victim of our own success, we would say.
Exactly.
But, um, but it ran for the greater portion of a school year.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Well, I'm
yeah, yeah.
thinking a month, 2 months. No, you're a
No,
whole school
no,
year
no,
almost.
no, no.
That's
It
pretty
scaled up,
cool.
right? Yeah, I mean, because when people began to see, like, you know, when the other little classmates, you're like, oh, like,
Hmm.
yep, you know, yeah, her mom makes great cookies and she traded out.
Yeah.
You could have had them too, bud. You didn't want to
Yeah.
spend your 25 cents. Right. It was a way to have a great treat. Of course, I wasn't going home and nobody was going home telling their mom, like, I traded my orange for a king dong.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so it was a great fun, but a great learning experience, you know, how to
Wow.
manage, because ultimately I had to hire a few people
Wow.
for
Wow.
help and everything
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
Negotiation. I mean, I had to negotiate with my own sister about fee for helping. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember going 20%. What do you mean 20%? But all of those little things. So yeah,
Mhm.
so it was a really good experience. So
Mhm.
that was really my first kind of lesson in creating and building kind of on the fly. But
Mhm.
from there, I've always, you know, kind of built, like, as I, you know, and as I began, say for example, I taught tennis many years. I
Mhm.
played very high level competitive tennis. But when I
Mm.
began to teach tennis here in Atlanta, we know we have Atlanta Lawn Tennis Association, ALTA, one of the largest tennis
Mhm.
leagues in the country. I
Mhm.
think it might still be the largest in the country. And so I taught and coached teams in ALTA for years. And so what I saw in there was there are tons of people. Atlanta has an amazing pipeline and a tennis community, but there are all these people who want to participate, but they're not quite good enough, or they're new, they didn't know the game,
Mm.
but they just needed to be good enough and have confidence and have community
Mhm.
to create a base. At the time, I don't know, I don't keep up with it, but it was C8. That was the lowest flight and level, right?
Mhm.
Beginner.
Mhm.
So I had a class that focused only on people whose goal was to be able to get into a C8 team.
Mm.
And I mean, I always had a waiting list
Mm. Wow. Okay.
because I had a funnel, because of course I knew many other friends who were great coaches who were teaching teams, and I would just pass them along. I'd be like, and when you graduate from this court, you're going to go over there and you'll be in coach so-and-so's team. And
Mm.
it created a great pipeline. Identify a simple need,
Mhm.
a little
Mhm.
gap, and fill it.
Yeah, and not just fill it for yourself, but find ways to at least in this particular case, move them on to the next stage, right? And
Right,
so then you got
right.
support not just from the paying clients, but also some of the other beneficiaries of, your pipeline.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
s- so Gallup. So what did you do at Gallup? Is it a Gallup organization? Gallup
Yeah, the Gallup
organization.
organization. Yeah, people call it Gallup, but the Gallup
Mm-hmm.
organization. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I was a research director.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so with that title, I mean, it can mean many things, but in the Gallup at the time, so um, you Gallup is a consulting organ, a research-based consulting organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so in serving clients, whether that was on the customer experience side, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just like they created information for the Gallup poll that people knew about for years from the political standpoint, that was a whole separate part of the organization. But the science and the methodology is where Gallup created, was always been front and center in terms of their differentiator. And so as a research director there, what you did was work with clients. You know, I had a roster of clients, and whether that was on the talent side and helping them understand scientifically who and how to hire and retain the best in terms of their talent, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or on the customer side, helping to understand what, why, and how customers are doing,
Mm-hmm.
so that
Mm-hmm.
you can grow your client base, grow your profit, all of that, you know, all of those types of things, sustainable profitability, all of that comes in from a research standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a research director, you create, manage, and drive that research.
So and here's a brief follow-up question to
Sure.
this. Did Gallup work with ad agencies?
Yes.
Okay, the
Yeah.
reason I ask is because my very first job out of college was as a media planner. And I
Okay.
remember, for some reason, that's probably why Gallup stood out to me when you mentioned it. I remember, I'm almost certain, pulling some data from Gallup to be able to substantiate some of the media plans that we used to
Yeah.
create. So
Yeah.
yeah, okay, then there we
Yeah.
go. There
Yeah.
we
I
go.
mean, right. So yeah. So I had amazing. I had an amazing time there. I mean, I worked with so many great companies, from companies in the pharmaceutical industry.
Mhm.
You know, the pharma has undergone so many mergers and separations and everything like that over the years. But Merck, Glaxo, well, you know, all of those.
Mhm.
Then ultimately, let me think. I'm just thinking. I mean, I work with so many, but ultimately, I came into the travel and hospitality vertical. So I work with Lufthansa, Air
Mhm.
Canada, of course, Delta was a big client. Um, JAL, Japan Airlines. And
Mhm.
then when I got into the hospital, the resort and hotels vertical, where there was Fairmont and
Mhm.
Ritz and
Mhm.
Intercontinental. No, I didn't go with Intercontinental until I went to Intercontinental. But
Okay.
but in those verticals,
Yeah.
there's some very specific things
Mhm.
that you understand. You have to understand that, you know, a room is just a room, and a hotel and a seat on a plane is just a seat on a plane. It's the experience that makes it
Mhm.
different, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so from that and those experiences at Gallup, I became pretty darn good at it, I guess. And so
Mhm.
when the opportunity presented itself to focus exclusively in the hotel space, I was
Mhm.
recruited over and I joined Intercontinental, which wasn't Intercontinental at that time. At the time, it was still owned by Bass. And
Mm.
people may be familiar with Bass Ale.
Mhm.
It's the same company.
Oh,
And
Bass
yeah,
Ale,
Bass
yes.
Ale. Yeah, it was
Okay.
Bass. It
Okay.
was Bass
Okay.
Hotels and Resorts. Yeah. So
Okay.
it was cool because actually at work in every floor there was a tap. That was
Yeah.
yeah, it was kind of weird. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so and from Bass, it became then it was a merger acquisition. I can't remember which. And we switched to when we were Six Continent Hotel and Resorts, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then there was one more big kind of nasty merger acquisition fallout thing. And ultimately they finally landed, and it's what it is today, Intercontinental
Mhm.
Hotels Group,
Okay.
IHG. Yep.
And that's how you got into the luxury travel space.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, but
Right. Yeah.
that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. So,
Yeah. Mhm.
there are a couple of reasons why I stuck on. I was really, really
Sure.
intrigued by that. Was number one, everyone that listens to the podcast and have heard me talk about how interested I am in travel, not
Yes.
just regular travel. I'm here, I
Mhm.
showed up, look at me type of
Sure.
travel.
Sure.
It's really culturally immersive
Yes.
travel. So
Yes.
I'm always really interested when I hear
Mhm.
anything having to do with
Yes.
travel, and so
Mhm.
certainly interested in the research aspect of
Mhm.
it. I'm also interested because I work with researchers,
Yeah.
for the work that I do with my business,
Yes.
work with evaluators
Mhm.
that, evaluate grant funded programs. So that kind of definitely piqued my interest. So
Yes.
I'm glad I went down this road with you because I,
Yes.
number one, learned a lot more about what you did,
Mhm.
and how that really differs significantly from what you're doing now. It seems to.
Mhm. Mhm.
Maybe I'm off, but we're definitely gonna touch on that a little bit
Sure.
now. So you also mentioned that you were at Clark Atlanta University, and I know you've
Yes.
been at you received your you received your PhD from University of Michigan, went back to University of Michigan, and you were an instructor at some point. Isn't that correct? A
Mhm.
professor or
Yeah.
okay, okay. Do you
Mhm.
mind sharing a little bit about that and what that was like?
Sure. I enjoy teaching. And if
Mm-hmm.
you look at kind of my bio, the
Mm-hmm.
running theme is, and my mother has said this for years, and I kind of really didn't pay attention to it, but
Mm-hmm.
she's right. Mothers are
Mm.
often right, right?
Yes,
That
yes.
what I enjoy doing and what I end up being talented in, I inevitably end up teaching
Mm.
because I just want to share it with other people. And I
Mhm,
realized that's kind of how God built me. Like
mhm.
if I'm good at it, I want to share it with others, and I end
Mhm.
up teaching.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So
Okay.
from whether, from an athletic standpoint,
Mhm,
yes, I've taught for since I was young,
mhm, mhm,
18, 19, 17, whatever it is,
mhm,
as well as my academic skills. I love teaching research. I've taught, a lot of research oriented applied methodology because
mhm,
I think that research, well, we know that research informs almost everything in life, right? That's how
mhm,
we advance. And
mhm,
if we diversify the various realms of research,
mhm,
we will diversify many other things. Like
mhm.
one of the
Mm.
reasons that I'm in golf and doing so many of the things that I do in golf, because I saw very quickly, like, nothing's going to change in golf if everything is coming from the same body.
Got it. Got it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
And
get what
so,
I
yeah.
mhm. I definitely get what you're saying. So in other words, if the research is one dimensional, then a lot of the results from the research is going to be one dimensional, which then of course impacts other areas of our life, especially in those areas where people are using research to inform what they actually do.
Correct.
Got it. Got it.
Correct.
And so, one of the things I find really interesting is that you're one of the few African American women who earned a Class A status as a golf teaching professional.
Correct.
So, what does it actually take to earn that designation?
Yes. So the first thing is that you do have to be a good golfer. Let's just step one in golf, you
Mhm,
have to show it on the course, right? So there's that part.
mhm,
So once you take care of that,
mhm,
beyond that, there's a series of levels in terms of understanding how to teach, how
mhm,
to help someone move the needle in their golf experience, right? Their
mhm,
skill set. And with the LPGA, there are two organizations in the world, LPGA and PGA. The LPGA in particular, we are the world's teachers, right?
mhm,
We focus on the science of instruction, because
mhm,
it's not just happenstance or random. Someone shows up on your lesson tee, as we call it. We call our teaching space the lesson tee,
mhm,
and someone just helps you hit a ball,
mhm,
right? That requires a very specific set of skills and understanding the science behind ball
mhm,
flight, all of those types of things. But moreover, just the overall skill of instruction.
mhm,
And so we spend a painful amount of time helping people to master that. And I say painful only because we leave no stone unturned, right?
mhm, mhm.
And from my perspective, as I always say, if we're not good at doing that, we cannot grow the game,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? It needs to be welcoming. We need to be really good at it to make
Mhm.
it fun and easy for you.
Yeah, yeah,
Because if you're going to spend your time and your money and all these other things, you don't want it to be uncomfortable, right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
want it to
yeah.
be welcoming. You want it to be um, productive. You want to get some positive results out of it and all those things. And so that's what we spend our time doing, versus you just showing up and hoping that, well, I'm a nice person. We're hoping that this ball is going to get into the air. We're hoping that you learn how to swing in a
Mhm,
style and an approach that works for your body, whether you
mm,
have some limitations or not.
mm, mm.
That's not a good thing. And
Yeah.
so all of that to say, that's the process, the very formal process that our members go through to
Mhm,
earn a Class A certification. So we have several tiers in there. We have an apprentice,
mhm,
which is just that they're kind of learning. There's
mhm,
level Class B, where we're getting past that, and we're doing teaching maybe in the midst of your career or early phase of your career. But then a Class A means that you have um, passed and exceeded all of those requisite tasks in courses and programming, to then ascend to be what we call full membership.
mm,
And you
mhm,
are ready to fully represent and hang your shingle and represent the organization,
mm,
and
mm.
for that. So yeah.
Yeah, that is so as I'm thinking about it, there are a couple of things. First of all, never actually played golf a day in my life. But one of the things I do know is that it's not as easy as it looks. And I'm sure anyone listening and hearing us understands that. Because there are a lot of things around angles and math. And as you said, flight and the pace and the speed and wind and all these other things. I may be wrong, but I'm thinking those are some of the variables to consider. And I hadn't even thought about, well, what about the details having to do with the person that's swinging,
Mhm.
their height, the instrument they use. There's just a
Sure.
lot. And I'm sure, again,
Sure.
I barely scratched the surface, but because that's kind of, really getting
Right.
my mind thinking about what that actually entails. I can,
Mhm.
that and that's just probably the instruction side of it and nowhere near some of the other things that you have to do to actually meet that criteria. So congrats to you for doing that. Um, Now, what would you say has been one of the biggest aha moments in your time as a golf instructor?
Mhm. Um, aha moments.
In terms of, even it could be an aha moment as it relates to um, one of the students that you're teaching, or you know, any maybe anything that you can think of that was like, wow, I did that, or
Well, I think that one of my aha moments is that the opportunities
mm,
that golf can bring to people. I knew this, and I've taken advantage of them, frankly, for myself. But I've always it's still an aha moment every time that I'm able to help someone uh, use golf as a tool, or realize the value of using golf as a tool, whether that is for their personal wellness, for community, for strengthening and building a relationship, whether that's a marriage, personal, professional, anywhere in between,
mm,
or also the tool that it can be to move their lives forward. I'm always so proud of, I've had a great number of students that have moved on, and they're changing the trajectory of their lives and their families' lives because they don't have to pay for college.
yeah, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So the amazing tool that golf is and can be, that's what continues to give me an aha moment. So
yeah,
it's why, and I'm so passionate about um, getting people like me, women
mm-hmm,
of color. There
mm-hmm,
is a reason that
yeah,
golf is around, and it's a multi-billion dollar industry. Golf's a $21 billion a year industry. There's a
mm-hmm,
reason.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah, yeah.
And
Mm.
so that would probably be my continuous aha moment.
Yeah. And interesting, you said that there are all these other opportunities because you yourself are a brand ambassador, correct?
Yes.
What
Yes, I am.
yeah, so what brands have you worked with? Would love to learn about that.
Sure.
Hmm.
So, and again, I'm saying it because I believe it to be true. I'm a
Hmm.
proud diversity and global ambassador for the Titleist and
Hmm.
Footjoy brands. So, number one
Hmm.
ball in golf, right?
Hmm.
Everyone's probably seen that script writing Titleist.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, great company, great
Hmm.
products, known at, the gold standard in golf in many
Hmm.
areas. But,
Hmm.
and I say that because I am a brand ambassador, but I will say this: I don't use anything or
Hmm.
promote anything that I don't use. I
Yeah.
was using and playing with Titleist golf balls and wearing FootJoy shoes way before I had
Hmm.
a relationship with them. So it
Hmm.
was a very natural fit. But I more even more so, I believe in their deep commitment to diversity. That's a big deal for me. I mean,
Hmm.
it is. I don't just, I mean, at this point in my life, you see all this gray hair, and I don't have time to just
Hmm.
not to partner with brands with which I cannot sincerely
Hmm.
believe in their commitments. Can't
Hmm.
do it.
Yeah.
And so their efforts, many of them are out front and center, but there are a lot of things that they do behind the scenes. It's just a
Hmm.
great brand. And so, of course, being a large, big player in the world of golf, that's an important one to me.
Yeah, good. So one of the things I really enjoy about the podcast is the opportunity to learn from the women and other people that
Mhm,
I actually get a chance to interview. And so, definitely learning a lot from you. I would like to learn, and maybe you can share a tip or two on
mhm,
how one would go about getting a brand sponsorship. I'm sure there are instances when brands come to you because they
mhm,
see, hey, this person's an influencer, this
mhm,
person's already, kind of lodged in the community we're
mhm,
trying to either appeal to or sell to in some instances,
mhm,
but would
mhm,
love a tip or two on how one can get a brand sponsorship, pursue one, I should
mhm,
say.
mhm, mhm. Well, first, I think the one of the things is to understand that it's going to be a two-way street.
Hmm.
It needs to be a win-win, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think the best way that you can be a great brand ambassador is
Hmm.
to know what you really know what you stand for,
Hmm.
right? And make sure that it's a match. Number one, you may have a short list of companies and organizations which you'd love to sponsor with. Make sure it's a match. Is it, if you don't want it to just be for the product or
Hmm.
something like that. Number one. Number one.
Hmm.
Secondly, don't be afraid to reach out and communicate with the brand. Do your research, and take the time to communicate with them, because I always feel like this, what's on the other side of me, crafting a thoughtful email, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is on the other side of me hitting that return button to send, right?
Mm-hmm.
It might be amazing opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Worst case scenario is a no. Okay, am I any worse off?
Mm-hmm.
No. Right?
Yeah.
So I feel very strong. I wasn't always that way, but I feel very strongly about that. But I will never ask if I don't feel like there's a win-win.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the really most important thing, because there are, it's support. I'll use my ambassadorship as an example.
Mm-hmm.
It is my pleasure, because again, I love the work that they're doing behind the scenes, but a lot of the things you're doing, it's not postable. It's not, I'm not going to take a screenshot of me on a meeting with, their leadership. That's not appropriate. So if everything you think that you're going to do is going to be for the, for the gram or whatever, think closely about the value of that relationship for you and for them. If it's about really in the big picture, yes, I do benefit in many different ways, but you have to think about crafting, again, think of it as a relationship. That's the big one.
Yeah, that is an excellent point. You made a number of excellent points. It's not always the sponsorships that we see the most of. You're right. People posting on the gram. Number two, thinking about what you bring to the table and what you expect to get from it, and how you can craft it, negotiate it so that there are a number of benefits that you walk away from, not just maybe cash, and certainly not just whatever cachet you may think you can get from the photos. Excellent advice. And so we only have two more questions for you. So I do want to ask you now, you've had an opportunity to work for others, right? When you worked at Gallup and of course as an instructor. And then of course you have a number of years as an entrepreneur. How would you say being an entrepreneur has enriched your life? Just in general, would love to learn a little bit about that.
Yes. I love being an entrepreneur. One, it's taught me many things. Patience is one of the big ones, because as you well know, as an entrepreneur, things don't always happen in the order and the space that you want them to. Sometimes you have to, if you will, trust the process, right? You also have to learn to, make smart decisions, but trust others, right? Everything, you can build a lot on your own, but you will need to learn the power of great partnerships. And know when to hold them, know when to fold them, right? Sometimes there can be great people along on your journey, and sometimes we have to, as I'd like to tell people, I'm good at pruning. Have to learn to do that. Doesn't mean that you don't fit into my life or my world. It may not be for this season, this moment. And I think most entrepreneurs at this point, I'm celebrating 20 years as an entrepreneur. I've taken some lumps along the way, but each day as an entrepreneur is a day that I get to learn so much. And I just love that, because I'm a learner. I like to do that. But I also like the fact that I don't have limitations. I can set the course. Like now when I think about things like, and again, this is no casting no aspersion on other people and their choices, right? But for me, like the prospect of somebody telling me exactly what I can make, like I can't even fathom it. Like someone telling me like, this year you're going to make 3% more than you made last year. Like, I can't.
Yeah.
And it's not, but I realize it's not for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so for me, that's, kind of one of the things that I get to create my limits or lack thereof.
It is not, this was an unconventional response to, what's it like being, that's basically the question is, what's it like being an entrepreneur now, especially since you have the opportunity to compare it with, having worked for others and of course having 20 years of entrepreneurial experience. Very unconventional response. You found a gap in that response. And I really, really appreciate that you actually helped me understand how finding a gap can actually be a talent. I didn't even think about that. Like
Yeah.
and now I'm thinking about, I think I'm pretty good at finding the gaps. It's, you know,
Mhm.
especially when I consider
Yeah.
some of the things that I have been
Yeah.
able to create, and not just create it, but kind of take it to the fore and try to see if I can get someone to believe in enough in it and
Yeah.
to hire my company to make it
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
So that's, I really appreciate you bringing that, helping me understand that. I hadn't
Good.
considered that as something I should be
Mhm.
proud of, you know, or
Yeah.
even recognize.
Yeah.
So my last question for
Yeah.
you is, what does an age has no limit life look like to you?
And age has no limit life looks to me, it's evolved over time,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like it's one where you feel comfortable and have the freedom to evolve and navigate your course as you see fit. You're not following the rules of convention like, oh, I'm X years old and I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or I shouldn't be doing this or shouldn't be doing that. And age is just a number. I'm kind of built this way. I've always embraced who I am,
Mm-hmm.
what I am, whether that was, in vogue or not.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly at this season, as I'm moving into my 53rd year,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love that I'm here. I've never been one of those people to like, want to keep my age a secret. I believe strongly like it's a blessing to be here
Mm-hmm.
and to have been able to navigate the course,
Yeah.
to know
Yeah.
what I know to be here.
Yeah.
And so with that, living a limitless life, I
Mm-hmm.
get to take all of those things that I've learned in all these years and to get better and better and better as I
Mm-hmm.
build, and to then be able to help impart knowledge and share with other people.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't that long ago when I was that 20 something or that 30 something, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that's what living a limitless life is at this age and at this season as I move forward. It's having the freedom and the ability to kind of, within means and reason to an extent, but help to 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 take the detours as you see fit or you need to, but also to have the power to help others do those same things.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you so much, Dr. Greta Anderson. I'm going to call you Dr. Greta. I
Yes.
appreciate you taking the time out to come and share your wisdom, share your life experiences, give me a laugh, a nice belly laugh when you described your entrepreneurial endeavors in elementary school.
Yeah.
Sure, I really
Yes. Yes.
appreciate
Yes.
that. So this is what I'd love for you to do. Please let people know where they can learn more about you. And also, we didn't touch on at all your other business, but if you'd like to share the website for that, please do that so that people can learn more about you and your businesses.
Sure. Okay. So the easy way to find me is that you can find me all over the place at Dr. Greta Golf, Dr. Greta Golf. On LinkedIn, I am Dr. Greta. No golf on there. And
Mhm.
so you can talk to me about golf. You can also talk to me about the business that we did not really talk about here.
Mhm.
We are in the knowledge strategy business. That business is an agency. It's called the Digital Sage Agency. You can
Mhm.
find us at digitalsage.agency. So I
Mhm.
welcome the opportunity to chat with you and to serve. And
Mhm.
please do check me out.
Oh, great. Well, thank you all for joining me for another illuminating episode of the Age Has No Limit podcast. And as I said before, I thank Dr. Greta for joining us and sharing a little bit about our life. So for those of you who have any questions for Dr. Greta, she's giving you the information to find out more. One of the things that I always say at the end of every episode, and I really mean it, don't forget, age has no limit.